Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Been looking forward to having our next guest on the program, former Congressman Lieutenant Colonel Allen West in studio. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Lubbock.
Chad, it's good to be with you. Guns up, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Now, of course, you are running for state Republican chair, and we'll get to that. But I want to start off with, just for those, I think many of those in our audience know you, know your name. But for those who don't, kind of give them a refresher about your background and your history.
Sure. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Went to the University of Tennessee, earned my commission as a second lieutenant in the Army. I was commissioned in 1982. Spent 22 years in the Army. My last duty assignment was Fort Hood, Texas, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. I got out of the military, and we moved down to South Florida. Told my wife, wherever you want to go, because I've been dragging you all over the place. And so spent time down in South Florida, 11 years, and was a congressman from down there. Got redistricted out by Republicans, and I was the number one target for the Democrats in 2012. We lost by 0.49%. And the following year, I got the offer to come back to Texas to be part of a public policy organization, and I said yes, and so here we are. Been married for 30 years. My wife's a financial advisor with Oppenheimer, 2 daughters, 26 and 22. The oldest is a physician assistant in Dallas, and the youngest is with a software consulting firm. That's great.
That's great. Well, we're glad to have you here in studio, and let's get into some stuff, especially with your military background. And we'll get into the state party politics and all that here in just a little bit. The Soleimani, the droning of Soleimani, and I hate to call him a general, because there's almost a little bit when you address someone as
you
general,
legitimize him.
Exactly. This guy was a terrorist. This guy was a scumbag. And he was taken out by the Trump administration. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let's do this. Let's call him a general, because when we found out when Admiral Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, was going to be flying on a transport plane, guess what we did? We targeted him, and we sent fighter aircraft to shoot him out of the sky. So we've been there before. And like I said, he was the architect of the incredible attack at Pearl Harbor. Now, with this man, Soleimani, he is the number 3 guy, but he is the head of a terrorist organization, a designated terrorist organization, the Quds Force. You know, I spent time in Iraq. 18 to 20% of the deaths and the wounding of our men and women in uniform are directly responsible back to him because of the explosive force penetrators that Iran developed. He supplied over to the terrorists in Iraq, and they used it against our men and women. And if you go further back to 1983 with the Beirut barracks bombing, Hezbollah is a proxy terrorist army of Iran. Well, guess where Soleimani was coming from? He was coming from Lebanon, coordinating with Hezbollah. He was meeting with the Shiite paramilitary force commander that is there in Iraq, who is responsible for the missiles that were fired onto the K1 base, I believe, where we lost an American contractor. Those people that were attacking our embassy, and it was an attack, that's sovereign American territory, they were spray painting Soleimani's name on our embassy. Right. So, yes, we have a window of opportunity to take out this head of a terrorist organization. And to hear Democrats talk about we assassinated a foreign official, or the fact that he was a revered and strategic genius and this great general, or even people commenting on his dashingly handsome looks, this is repulsive. And as Joe Lieberman said, we were talking off mic, the left has to be very careful going into an election year. What would they rather us do? Would they rather us send more billions of dollars of palletized cash to the number 1 state sponsor of Islamic terrorism in the world? That's what Iran is. So President Trump should be celebrated. He should get all kind of accolades for taking this shot, which Barack Obama had over 500 drone strikes.
Yeah.
No one ever had to ask
Nancy
him.
Pelosi never said a word.
Never said a word. But what the Iranian Ayatollahs now know, Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama are not sitting in the White House.
That's very true. This used to be when Osama bin Laden, when it was announced that he was dead and gone, America celebrated.
Yes,
everybody, Republicans, Democrats,
absolutely,
everybody celebrated. With this president, we're not allowed to celebrate. and the media is part of this. The Democrats are part of this. And it's a very sad position that we're in, because it's not just a Trump win. This is an American win.
It is, but it's the politics of hypocrisy that they can sit back and they want everyone to cheerlead Barack Obama. But think about this. When our embassy is attacked under President Trump, what does he do? He immediately sends a rapid response force of the Marines in there. You could see the helicopters landing there. He then stands up more troops to be able to go as a deterrent force. We had what happened in Benghazi, the special mission compound, the consulate there. Nothing. No response. 4 Americans lose their lives, to include an ambassador, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Doherty. The hypocrisy that, what difference does it make in the case of Benghazi? But now all of a sudden, why did you have to do this right now? Show us that there was an impending attack. The same scrutiny was never levied upon Barack Obama. We talk about the president getting permission. President Obama did not get permission from the Congress. I was there when he decided to outsource our military to Islamic jihadists in Libya to take down Muammar Gaddafi. And now all of a sudden the same crows are out there, yakking about how the president should go get permission from them. This is, again, repulsive. It's disconcerting. It's disgusting. And this will be a reason why the Democrats get defeated in November.
Where do you draw a line? And I think this is a worthy debate at any point, no matter who the president is. When should the president go to Congress? And we've talked about this, I don't know for how many years, about when a president should get that declaration of war from Congress, because it seems as though when, Republicans have the White House, they don't say much about it. Same thing for Democrats. When they have the White House, they don't say much about it. When would you think a president should do that?
If you are going to commit the nation and its resources to a long-term combat conflagration, like with Iraq or like with Afghanistan, yes. But if you have these abilities to conduct what we call strike operations, that's within the purview of the president. And again, the War Powers Act gives the president a limited ability. You go back to April of 1988 with Ronald Reagan. April the 4th of 1988, an Iranian mine struck a U.S. naval vessel, the Forester. 14 days later, Ronald Reagan commenced Operation Praying Mantis. It wasn't a war, but what it was an operation to strike back at the capability of the Iranian Navy. We sunk about 5 or 6 of their frigates, gunboats, speedboats, killed about 60 Iranian sailors. We didn't go to war with Iran, but it was a direct response to them mining and affecting one of our naval vessels. So I think those are the type of things where the president should be able to respond quickly. Now, he may be able to inform certain members of the Congress, but, for the sake of operational security, he should keep that close hold. And I find it interesting that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, all of them complaining, Nancy Pelosi is too busy with this impeachment thing.
Right.
And she has declared, President Trump the national security threat and not Soleimani. So, she has lost some relevance when it comes to the national security of the United States of America.
Visiting with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here in studio, and we'll take a break here, Jody, in just a second, and then we'll get into the campaign. I want to ask you about this. You do a lot of traveling, a lot of speaking engagements around the country. What's the attitude from folks when it comes to this president? Because if you just listen to CNN, if you just listen to some of the news channels, you know how it is. What are people really saying about this president?
He is the first Republican that fought back, and people appreciate that. No one else could be doing what Donald Trump is doing except for Donald Trump. And I know him personally because, Mar-a-Lago and several of his properties were in the congressional district that I represented. He is doing a phenomenal job policy-wise. You cannot debate against that. Should he tweet less or whatever, some of his personality quirks, that's fine. But the people in the United States of America appreciate the fact that someone is there and they care about them. And what the left is doing is talking with their own echo chamber, within their own echo chamber. And I think they're going to have a McGovern Dukakis moment in November 2020.
Yeah. When we come back, we're going to talk about the campaign for state chairman. We'll also get into some of the other political news of the day. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here on the Chad Hasty Show. We'll take our break. We'll be right back on News Talk KFYO. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West in studio this morning. And you announced back in, I believe it was August, that you were that you've decided to run for state chairman of the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. What led to that decision? Because I know there were people kind of tugging on you, run for this, run for that, run for this. What was it about state chairman that appealed to you the most? Well,
the thing, Chad, you got to sit back and you got to look at where can I have the best impact? Where can I do the most good? So, I live in the district that was lost to Colin already. Okay, so I run and go back to Congress. What real impact you're going to have? Or if you run for Senate and you go into the Senate, now you're the junior senator from the state of Texas. But when you look at the strategic importance of Texas, the economic growth and opportunity, we would not be energy independent if it were not for Texas. And now Texas is being targeted by the other side. Yeah. And so think about what just happened in Virginia. The fact that they lost the state house and the state senate, all really because of two counties, Fairfax and Prince William. And now look at what they're fighting against there in Virginia. We have a fight here in Texas, and I tend to believe that the way that Texas goes is the way that the United States of America goes. And so when Tom Perez, of the DNC chairman, comes out and says, Texas is our battleground state, when people are saying they're going to flip the Texas State House, and you think about why, Texas is going to pick up 3 congressional districts. And the redistricting comes up after 2020. We've got to have the strategic thinking to push back against the incursion of the progressive socialist left. Because when you look at the major population centers here in Texas, that's where they're focused. That's where they're taking over. Lubbock is red. West Texas is red. West Texas and East Texas keeps propping up the rest of Texas. Right. But if we don't make a difference in the I-35 corridor, or look at what happened in Houston, where every single elected Republican was defeated in 2018, we can't continue down the path of losing 12 state House seats, 2 state Senate seats, 2 U.S. congressional seats, 56 judgeships. And then we had a legislative session, which I will argue with anyone, was not a strong constitutional conservative legislative session. None of the priorities of the Republican Party were taken up in this last 86th legislative session. We've got to have strong focus, strategic vision. We've got to enable our county chairs, our precincts chairmen to be out there and deliver our message so that from the bottom up, we can keep Texas red. I don't want us to go the way that we have seen Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, many of the others, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. So as state chairman, what would you do?
What
would you do differently?
I think the most important thing is to take our message where the other side believes they're strong. In the urban centers, we got to look at these certain precincts. The Black and Hispanic communities are conservative in nature. We just don't continually tell and engage them with that, talking about principles and values, faith, family. When you have someone like Robert Francis O'Rourke saying that if churches don't accept same-sex marriage, they should lose their tax-exempt status, I want to get on the phone and say, hey, Pastor so-and-so, let's have a little town hall meeting with all the pastors down there in Houston or wherever. Mm-hmm. And we've been there before with Annise Parker, this subpoena sermons. So I think that's what we have to do, strengthening family, small business, entrepreneurship growth. And look at what President Trump has done for the Black and Hispanic communities with the incredible historic lows for unemployment, the opportunity zones, the criminal justice reform. And remember how he was just absolutely pilloried when he said in Charlotte, North Carolina, 2016 to the Black community, what do you have to lose? That's the exact same message we need to be taking all over Texas.
So would you say you would be getting your hands dirtier than what the?
Hey, look, that's the kind of leader I was in the military. I did not sit back in the command post while my men went out on combat patrols, whatever. And they can tell you, I was out there with my little 9mm hooking and jabbing right there with them. That's what you need. Leaders lead from the front. Leaders set the example. And the biggest example I want to do is get us on the same message point. One of the things that I will say I appreciate about the left, they all are on the same message point. It's like someone puts a chip in the base of their skull and they come out every day saying the same thing. Yeah. We need to have that same unity of message. We cannot continue to go along I call it the circular firing squad. Then the other thing is, I want to get dirty. I want to get down here with our county chairs, with our precinct chairmen. I want to go into these places to include the college and university campuses and challenge the other side. We have to go on offense. That's what President Trump has done. He's not sitting back on defense. He is completely confounding and confusing the other side.
I think we're visiting with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here on the program. When when people talk about this race and people talk about you versus James Dickey, one of the things that does come up is, we've seen Alan West on TV. We know he's a conservative. We know he's a good Republican. We know he's a fighter. Can he raise money? Can he raise money? Can he do the behind the scenes stuff that is typically thought of with a state chairman? So address that.
Chad, since I got back from Afghanistan in December 2007, from 2008 up to now, I've raised $50 million through congressional campaigns and for conservative causes. Army First Lieutenant Clint Lawrence, that was one of my near and dear causes that I helped to raise about $6 million for his legal defense fund. And I was one of the first calls that Clint made when he got released from Fort Leavenworth. So yeah, I can raise money. As a matter of fact, I've already had someone that has told me, after you win, we're going to have a $2 million fundraiser out here in Midland, Odessa. So absolutely. And more people are going to understand that Texas is so important to this country. So many members of Congress and Senate come to Texas to raise money.
Oh, yeah.
I want people to understand that we have to hold Texas ourselves, and we have to have those resources for us here. But the thing is that I think a lot of people have not seen a clear strategic vision, and that's why a lot of folks have been really reticent in donating to the Republican Party of Texas. I know the chairman says that we got $2 or $3 million to raise. Texas should have $10 or $15 million. The Republican Party is sitting here. We should not have a county chairman that is struggling, worrying about, can I get an executive director? Can I have a little bit of a staff? We need to be able to say, here's some resources.
Right.
So that you can go out there and be able to, fund your efforts.
I want to ask you, we've got about, 2 minutes left or so, and you brought up the legislative session. With Governor Abbott, with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, would you have spoken openly about your unhappiness towards the session, or how do you go about that? How do you go about influencing how the session goes?
You do it behind closed doors, and first of all, you do it before the session gets started. You sit down and you talk about those priorities and what you want to see happen, and what the people, the Republicans here in Texas, want. I often tell folks that if you are a Republican in the state assembly or the state senate in California, what chance do you have of getting a legislative priority passed? So why are we allowing that to happen here in Texas? Elections have consequences. Texans have said they want a constitutional conservative direction. They want a red state. So that's what we should be delivering to them. And I would never be out there in public trying to draw attention to myself. I want to build us and help us to be strong.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, tell folks how they can find out more about you and the campaign that you're running and everything else that you're up to.
Sure. If you want to follow me, theoldschoolpatriot.com. That's where I do all my writing and whatever. But our campaign, Texas.com. West4Texas.com.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Chad.
your time.
Happy New Year.